Dockside, and then they set off underneath the river. It's 44 foot in diameter, and so the tunnel looks like this. When we get down to road deck level, we'll take you out for a little look at the traffic. It was built as a double-decker tunnel, and we'll explain a little bit why when we get to the control room. Basically what this building does, it extracts foul air out of the roof of the tunnel. There's holes in the roof of the tunnel, and then it pushes fresh air down into these air inverts to ventilate the tunnel. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take you up to the old control room and tell you about the functions that they had in that room. They only moved out 6 years ago, but you'll see it looks quite a lot older than that. We'll come back down through the building, we'll go through our boiler house and into a fresh air chamber, so you get to see one of the fans in action. We'll then go out to the side of our tunnel, called the side plaza underneath by the Cunard building, which we call our bridge room, and you'll get to see George's dock, which we sit in. And then it's a short 120 stairs down to go and look at the drivers in the tunnel, go and scare the drivers for a little while. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. Do you have any burning questions at this point? We're conscious we've got to kind of try and keep these moving. Does anybody have any sort of questions about how it was built? Or we will cover bits of it as we go around the Mersey tunnel, so it's the most ornate one, has all the most ornate carvings around the outside of it. There are 3 this side of the river and 3 the other side of the river, but these were a little bit of an afterthought, and we'll cover that when we get to the fresh air chamber as to how come we ended up with these kind of giant chimneys in the centre of Liverpool. So our first stop is actually to go to the top of the building. We will do a little break on floor 4, won't we? Yeah, I think so. That's as far as I can get. That's 100 stairs. But if anybody does need a lift up that 100 stairs, don't be brave. Feel free to ask. Obviously, we can't put you all in, but there is a lift that will take you up that section and cut out 100 stairs. So anybody want a lift at all? No? Okay.
It's not like a museum you can't touch. We think everything's off. We think. Except the phones, isn't it?
Except phones and the guides.
Yeah, and the guys, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, in our old engineering control room. As Alison said, about 6 or 7 years ago we started to spend on here working 24/7, 365 days a year. Whether it was just the same to our ship, of course. What we'll do, we'll just quickly walk around the room and tell you a few things about this room. So this panel behind you is the main electrical distribution panel for the fans you're going to see. Some people, you're all local, so you might recognise some of the names. George's Dock, that's the ventilation station we're in now. Another one, North John Street, opposite 6 by Nico. Woodside, over the other side of the water, Sydney Street. And 2 branch exits, one in Liverpool, one in Birkenhead. The Birkenhead one is now closed. That closed in 1965. So what are we generating from our cars when we go through the tunnel? Fumes? Yeah. Carbon monoxide. Yeah, the engineer's job is to get rid of those fumes. So it's detected in the tunnel. If it was detected, the engineers would come across and say, let's get some fresh air fans on, let's get some exhaust fans on, in the sea things. It would light up like black illuminations, they loved it. It was a just like, they just loved it. And what they're on now in the new control room is a mouse and a screen. So you can imagine they didn't want to leave this room, but they ended up having to leave this room. We come to this end here. I should tell you how this tunnel was constructed. It was constructed through sandstone. A lot of people think the tunnel sits on the riverbed. It wasn't. It was constructed through sandstone under the riverbed. What they did, they cut away the sandstone, put cast iron segments in its place. Before they bolted the cast iron segments together, they put molten lead in the joints. Then they bolted it together, and then they backed it with concrete on the outer face and slurry on the inside face. It's like a sloppy concrete, as you know. So the tunnel is quite watertight. But the tunnel doesn't leak, it seeps. And what I mean by seeps, it was the natural water table. The height of when this industry, when in Liverpool, height of industry, the water table was a lot lower because the industry was using it. It's gradually risen, and that's trying to get itself through the concrete, through the fissures in the sandstone, and into the tunnel. When you think about it, if you've driven through this tunnel, it comes down at a 1 in 30 gradient, and back up at a 1 in 30 gradient. So it's raining outside, what does it want to do? It wants to get into the tunnel. We've got gullies to try and stop that, but it still comes off tyre wheels and things like that. And what we've got under the road is a pit we call sump, and that collects the water. And this is how it was done in the time. This was the pumping station. Lots of graphs and things, and again nowadays it's a mouse and a computer. They loved all this sort of stuff. Just to give you an idea what sort of water we get into the tunnel from the, it's not, as I say, it's groundwater, not river water, about 200 gallons a minute. And when we get to road level a little bit later on, you might hear the pumps kick in. Although it's been quite dry, isn't it?
Yeah.
So sometimes they kick in. This area here is our electrical system, noble, I think. They're still, and nowadays they're just in t-shirts and things. Also, there's a communication system. A lot of people, I know you lot wouldn't have worked on that sort of stuff, but a lot of people did. And we tell youngsters when they come on, that's the iPhone 12, and he's sending a WhatsApp message. He doesn't believe, they don't believe. Also this area here, it's a plan of the tunnel with the 2 branch exits you know we've got. And if you think about in 1934 when you drove through this tunnel, you didn't know where you were. No CCTV in those days. So you've driven through, you'll know there's hose reels on the side and road telephones. If you broke down, you'd pick it up, there was an alarm on here, light up on here, and the engineers would dispatch the police to come and help you. Chernobyl, I think. They're still, and nowadays they're just in t-shirts and things. Also, there's a communication system. A lot of people, I know you lot wouldn't have worked on that sort of stuff, but a lot of people did. And we tell youngsters when they come on, that's the iPhone 12, and he's sending a WhatsApp message. He doesn't believe, they don't believe. Also this area here, it's a plan of the tunnel with the 2 branch exits you know we've got. And if you think about in 1934 when you drove through this tunnel, you didn't know where you were. No CCTV in those days. So you've driven through, you'll know there's hose reels on the side and road telephones. If you broke down, you'd pick it up, there was an alarm on here, light up on here, and the engineers would dispatch the police to come and help you. When the tunnel was getting built, it was going to be the longest underwater road tunnel in the world, and it held that title for 14 years. But not only was it going to be the longest underwater tunnel in the world, under the middle 2 lanes, they were going to run trams. And what happened when they put the planning application in? There was an objection from the ferries and the railways. They said, we can understand you building the longest underwater road tunnel in the world, but if you put trams under there, you'll kill our businesses. So they rejected and it was upheld. So the engineer said, we're not going to change our design, we'll just leave it. Hopefully in the future we can do something with it. And that's what they did. As soon as he said we weren't going to run the trams, they got the go-ahead. It took 9 years to build, 1925 started, 1934 completed. Cost of £6 million, the original cost was going to be, but it went up to £8 million, which doesn't sound a lot nowadays, does it? And why it went up is because you have to put ventilation on the tunnel. Okay? By fate or fortune, 1991, does anybody remember the Mont Blanc disaster? Terrible road tunnel fire. Because of that, every tunnel in Europe had to go through a safety review. We went through our review and they said, yeah, you've got good means of escape on the land side, good means of escape on the Birkenhead and Liverpool side, but under the river, you've got no escape. You need safety refuges. And by fate or fortune, the trams weren't running there. We didn't build another roadway under there, so we had the perfect place for our safety refuges. I don't think we're going in those today, but they are a special place, and because of those safety refuges, we're one of the safest tunnels in Europe now, for the tunnel's age. Any questions? No? Right, can you put your hats on for us, please? Because we're going to head back.
Around that corner. They're fixing the floor. It's only taken 3 years so far. Nothing happens.
It's been there for ages.
It has been there for ages. Nothing happens quickly. Just coming through this way, we don't normally bring the public through this way, but we thought you'd like to see all the Art Deco work, the original kind of doors in this area. Public would never have seen this bit. This is kind of behind the scenes, the switch rooms. The next room we go into is our boiler room. It is a modern boiler. We haven't still got the old boiler, but we thought we'd bring you through this way so you can see all these doors.
Someone's going to watch that.
Okay, so there's always been a boiler room in this area. Still got the original doors, ceiling, some of the floor tiles. The original heating system for the building was actually kind of like a hypercore system, warm air, generated in boilers underneath the flooring, which was sent up through the walls. Obviously, we've got a bit more modern system now. The other thing that's quite antiquated for those of you who went to the toilets, the flushing system in the building is a bit like you'd get on a ferry. It's like a suction that pulls it down to the basement of the building. So we have our macerator cabinet there. Won't go into detail, but that's where it goes. Okay. So we're going to go through here and into the industrial side now. We go through airlock doors, just 2 doors on this section. Your job is just don't trip over them. They've got a little metal lip on them to form the seal. Me and Phil will open and shut them for you. You just watch your step as we come through. Above us or down into this, which is the fresh air chamber. Exhaust chamber looks just the same as this, only a lot dirtier. Okay, it's a completely different colour to this one. Started off white. You can get a better view of the fans and the gearboxes in this chamber. So the fans themselves are in this housing. You can see, kind of see the top of the housing. Housing for the fans is about 50 feet diameter. Fans inside are about 28 feet wide and they weigh around 25 tons each fan. If you walk around you might notice we've got 2 fresh air fans in here and we've got 2 exhaust fans up above. So what you can see here, at the back is our gearbox. Does the name David Brown and Sons mean anything to anybody? No? Well, where I'm from it's tractors, but if you're James Bond, means you've got an Aston Martin DBS, David Brown and Sons. So that's where it comes from. So only the best kind of equipment went into this. Like we've said before, nothing has been attempted on this scale anywhere in the world. You know, they wanted it to keep going, you put the best into it. But also, as much as possible, it was northern or northwest kind of products and labour. You know, it's 1920s, it was about getting people back to work. So, David Brown and Son is Huddersfield. Flint that it sits on says Metropolitan Vickers. So, they Manchester and Sheffield. The fans themselves, which will get switched on in a second for you, they're called Walkers Indestructible. They were made by Walkers of Wigan. So we're saying this is your fresh air chamber, but where we are now you can't see where the fresh air intake is. So we're actually going to walk back round. Bill will show you where the air intake is, and then we can get the fan the other side switched on for you. You get a bit closer to that one. Okay?
And where we said, as Alice said, we're in the fresh air chamber, a lot cleaner and a lot brighter than the exhaust. That's why we brought you here today. So what's the purpose of this? It's to get the fresh air into the tunnel. So how do we do that? Hold on to your hats, have a look up, and you see some daylight. Yeah? Think about our building. A great big tall chimney. About 3/4 of the way down, it's got shoulders. That's one of the shoulders, there's another shoulder in the opposite corner. So what happens when we get this fan put on for you in a minute? It's going to drag fresh air down from high level. It's going to come past us, go into the fan, and it's sent down a shaft about 120 feet deep, and it goes into the airways. Remember that diagram we showed you with the airways? It goes into those airways. Once it's in those airways, there's little holes drilled up onto the road. Fresh air comes up, ventilates the tunnel, and then goes out through the flat section of roof where there's holes again, out through to the exhaust fan, straight up the chimney. That makes sense to everybody? It's positive pressure, fresh air in, foul air out. And that's a swimming stroke, just in case we do leak. Okay, fresh air in, foul air out. Okay. When the tunnel was getting built, there was a report from America, Pittsburgh in America. There's a tunnel there called the Liberty Tunnel. It's 1/2 a mile long. And what had happened? There was a rail strike, just like we've got. A rail strike, everybody jumped in their cars to go to work. The tunnel was chock-a-block, queuing either side. What did I say before? Fumes. There was people inside that tunnel falling asleep through carbon monoxide poisoning, and people running out the tunnel gasping for their lives. And that report came across from America to the guys building the tunnel, and they said, wow, that tunnel is only 1/2 a mile long. We're building a tunnel 2.13 miles long. We're going to need some serious ventilation. But of course, they didn't know a lot about the combustible engine, didn't know a lot about carbon monoxide, so they didn't know what to give us. So what they did, they over-engineered everything. So these fans, as Alison said, 28 feet in diameter, 25 tons in weight with a top speed of about 68 to 70 revs per minute. They're not built for speed, they're built for pulling power in this case, and the exhaust built for sucking power. Not only did they give us huge fans, over-engineer them, they've given us two as well. So you saw one round in the corner there, this is the one we're going to get on for you, and the same with the fans upstairs, the exhaust fans. We've got 5 working ventilation stations, each with that number of fans in, so a lot of capacity to push fresh air into the tunnel or suck the foul air out. One fan can push or pull, depending which fan it is, 500,000 cubic feet of air in 1 minute. Just to give you an idea what that is, think of about 6 or 7 Olympic-sized swimming pools. It's that amount of air that one fan can pull in a minute. So we are very powerful. And as I said before, it's going to cost £6 million to build this tunnel. But when they added the ventilation, it went up to £8 million. So you can imagine the bosses going mad at that time, buying £8 million. And just to convert that to today's money, it's about £500 million. But you wouldn't build it like this. This is quite a unique tunnel with 4 lanes in the same tunnel. You build it more like the Kingsway, 2 separate tubes. Just behind us here as well, we've got the standby generators I told you about, and the fuel tanks are just around the corner of those brown tanks. So if we ever need the fans, they are there available to use. Right, do you want to see the fans working? Do you want to squeeze into there then? I promise you, you won't get sucked in. And if you do, you're going to go through the mesh and look like a big chip or a waffle.
loft behind me, okay? This is called our modern fresh air chamber. Modern for us, 1965, okay? Still called the modern chamber. It's actually more like the technology you would see in the other tunnel, in the Queensway tunnel. They were struggling to ventilate Queensway by the 1960s. Traffic had really built up and we hadn't got the second tunnel. So they added 2 more fans into here. The other vent stations already had 6 fans, but this one didn't. So they created an air intake, I'll show you on the way round, and put these 2 fans in. So if you look up, you see a circle. On the outside of the building you see a big green cap. And that's where they cut a hole in the glass and put these 2 fans in. There's a shaft underneath those fans, and these fans go down about 120 feet to push the air into the tunnel. So the shaft in this room is underneath this fan here. This is your standby fan at this end. The difference with these fans is they're on a track. So this one, when it changes over, picks itself up, rolls to the end of the room. This one will start up, roll over to the shaft, start to turn. Smaller blades, turning a lot faster. The other thing above us is an old coal booth, if you've never seen that as well. That's kind of the area you're in. This used to be a fitter's workshop. We used to do a lot of the making of stuff on site. They got kicked out because we needed this extra room. So if you follow me this way, I'll show you the area. So the ones on the right at the top of the building, much cleaner air because it's coming straight off the Mersey. So we tend to use the old fans now. And we talk about George's Dock building, and we're situated in an old dock. And if you go towards Phil, he's going to take you into our dock room. If you're tall, you might not crack your head.
Get some of you around this way, just go see this picture if you can. And what's the bit of this? Sorry, on the road. Have to do 2 hours of the thing?
Right, I'll do this overflow picture so
So where we are, ladies and gents, we're what we call our bridge room. Why do we call it a bridge room? Because because we're under a bridge. That's what we call it. So where we are now, we're under Brunswick Street. So you know, between the Port of Liverpool building and the Cunard, there's a street, that's called Brunswick Street. The other one between the other two buildings is Water Street. And there they are here on the story. That's Brunswick Street, and that's Water Street. So we're actually just come through our building here, and we just come under this very first arch, just there. Okay, that's that first arch. Of 17 arches going that way to the river. So the picture is the wrong way round, really. It needs to be on a wall there. Okay? So the river's that way, the big 6-lane road, the Strand, is that way, just to get your bearings. So why are the bridges there? Well, what happens? George's Dock, there was a huge dock, it was right along here under the overhead railway, round the Library Buildings, back down to Man Island, and back round. And that was put in 1771, this dock. And what happened? Liverpool was a very busy port, it got busier and busier, the ships were getting bigger and bigger, and eventually were too big for this dock. So what they did, they closed the dock and built docks north and south of here. But there was a problem in that the only way across the river in those days, in 1771, was by Mersey ferries across there. So in those days it wasn't like Mersey ferries is today, where it's Jerry Marsden on repeat, on repeat, on repeat. They were a much more robust ferry, and they were carrying all sorts of goods to do the sales in Liverpool. And in those days there was things talk about cattle coming on and off as well. So what they had to do when they got off the boat, they had to walk right around this dock because it was closed down. So what they said, we'll build 2 bridges across just to make it easier for people to get across with their goods. And they say that's Brunswick Street and that's Water Street. And they built these bridges, and that actually made 3 spaces for the 3 graces. Don't be shy now, you can tell me. And so this picture was taken on the completion of the Port of Liverpool building. And it was taken from the vantage point of St Nick's Church, which is over that way somewhere. It is on that drawing. And that was completed on completion in 1907. Then along came the Royal Library Building. You see the sign there? You can't see on the picture, but that came in 1911. And then the middle slot was filled by the Cunard Building in 1916. As you're all engineers and architects, I've been told, I can quite believe it, that the foundations for these buildings was cotton, bales of cotton. So what they did, they dried out the dock and they put huge bales of cotton in, compressed them, and then they are acting as foundations. And I believe Liso Lighthouse is the same. And that we were told by an engineer that, whether it's true or not, but why should he say that it wasn't? So effectively, the bridges are built over the dock. But because it was tidal, I should say, you know where St Nick's Church is over there, and all the other buildings there, that was the original banks of the River Mersey. So it's a lot nearer than the dock wall now. So effectively, the 3 graces and a lot of other buildings now are on reclaimed land. But the engineers knew water was still going to come in and out. He wants to find this natural banks, which is over there. So what they did, they put culverts in. There's culverts here and there's culverts at the other end. And these ones, like that one's here, are at high level, running about here through here. And they've got them repeated down about 30 feet down in the dock. So where we are here, there's that wall there. The other side of that wall is the dock. In fact, we're sitting on the dock. This is just a platform. So if this wasn't here, we'd be falling into the dock. Okay. So they knew, the engineers knew it was going to allow water coming in and out from the tide. So they put those in to stop erosion of the bridge. So it just comes in and out through the holes. Does anybody know what this building is here, or the structure? Yeah. Can't remember the date, Alison, can you remember? 1886, was it? Something like that?
1893.
1893. It went up, came down in 1956, and that came down to mass public demonstrations. Like the tunnel, it had a couple of world firsts. Anybody know them? No. The first overhead electric railway, the first elevated overhead electric railway in the world. And the likes of New York and Chicago and all they copied it. You see it in the films, that's what they copied. It also had a red light system where if a train goes, modern day, if it goes through a red light, it stops the train. That had that as well in those days. And it also had escalators, but they eventually became stairs quite quickly because ladies in the day wore long dresses, so it was constantly going into the escalator. And I like to think that's why the girls of Liverpool today wear short skirts, because they can go up and say, I don't want to get caught in an escalator. So, as we said, the water is coming in and out of here. So we're going to prove that to you now. So,
Do you want me to do it?
yeah, do you want to do it? Yeah.
We didn't have 4, did we?
Right, if you want to just talk a little bit, the northern one, this one. Is there anything you need to the river today? High tide or low tide? No? There's some real technical explanations now.
Well,
this job is to display attraction out of the building.
A nut and a piece of rope.
With a nut in the end.
Okay.
And what she's going to do is throw it through that culvert. It's high tide, you'll hear a big splash. It's a low tide, you'll hear a culvert splash.
Okay.
Just to prove the water is coming through.
Ready? Listening? So that's quite a deep splash today. It is salt water. We've got about 30 foot of rope here, so I'll just pull it back up. And then... I think I've caught something. Phil?
Need a bigger boat, yeah?
Yeah, I'll sort that out in a second. Right. If you want to come up one at a time, have a little look through. You're looking through the other 17 arches towards the river. So you're looking underneath Brunswick Street. And then when you've had a look, if you head back towards Phil.
Thank you. Waiting for Alison now.
Right, so you feel like you've come down a really long way, but that's actually the shaft that they dug underneath George's Dock building. So that's the depth that the men had to dig down with a pickaxe, small explosive, sorry ladies, it was all men back then. Ladies did have a role in the tunnel. They did the the electrical cables, did all the sewing jobs basically. Wouldn't have looked like that back in the 1920s. Would have just been rough rock, ladders, bits of rope. To come down here and start the daily dig on the tunnel itself. This is called the access tube because it's where the workers access the main tube. So you're down at road deck level. We'll take you out shortly to see the traffic. So Phil's told you a little bit about how it was built, you know, the method of construction. So they came down a shaft this side and the same the other side, Birkenhead side. But actually when they met in the middle, because they actually went from each side to meet in the middle, they were less than an inch out. So it was really, really accurate work.
No GPS in those days, of course.
I was going to say, how did they manage to actually meet in the middle? Because
the gadgets they had.
And also it's bendings, you know.
well, yeah, but you would have thought different, you know, underground or the
Just the other lights, wasn't it? Levels and the
other lights, measuring sticks, that kind of thing. They knew a bit about the geology because the railway tunnel is actually older. Mersey Rail is 1886, so they knew about it. Was the first underwater rail tunnel in the world. A lot of firsts in Liverpool, so they did know a little bit about the geology, and they did a lot of aerial photographs as well. But we just think, well, when they, you know, as they got close in the middle, they just shouted a bit, you know, left, right. But we've always said if they missed, then we'd have 2 tunnels straight away. Could have saved us a bit of money down the line, you know. But they were very, very good. As Phil was saying, it's a very bendy tunnel. And anybody know why it bends? Has anybody heard the story of why it bends? Do you know?
I think so.
Go on then.
Avoid some of the town hall or some of the buildings.
That's it, yeah. I mean, most people think it's to do with the geology or to slow horses down and that kind of thing. We never had horses in this tunnel in the end. The 2 mayors on either side of the river knew that nothing had been attempted on this scale anywhere in the world, and they were not that confident in the engineering. So they said, don't go under the municipal buildings. So as you come in at the Liverpool end, it avoids the municipal building at the top of Dale Street, the town hall by Castle Street, it goes down past the India buildings, underneath Brunswick Street, and then the other side it avoids Hamilton Square Station and the Birkenhead Town Hall. So even more amazing that they actually met up. When they completed the under river section in about 1928, and they completed that, they hadn't done the exits at that point. They were still arguing over where the exits should come out. There were different ideas for where they wanted the exits to come out. Certainly on the Birkenhead side, they thought it would come out at Woodside because there was a big train depot there as well as the ferries. So all the councillors were wrangling. So I think it was not until about 1929 they finalised where they were going to put these exits. So that's the other reason it kind of bends towards the end. It was to do with land that they could acquire as well. So this area here is our old emergency exit, as Phil has said. We did a lot of work as the result of the Mont Blanc tunnel fire. But before that, you would have come through this area, sat here, pulled a fire curtain over and awaited instruction. We always laugh because if there's a raging fire out there and a set of stairs there, I'm not sure anyone would wait in this area that long. I think you'd be right up those stairs, wouldn't you? But these days you actually would head off the road deck. You wouldn't go through these doors. You go off the road deck, and the refuge system is actually underneath this, underneath the river section. We have 7 of them. There's a little map there on the wall, A to G. You come down George's Dock staircase, you'll see it as you walk past, and then you go down into Refuge G, which is quite a walk from here, and then but you can keep going till you get to A, and you come up in Birkenhead the other side. So the idea is you're never trapped underground. It's a holding area. Tunnel police can see you, they can talk to you. There's cameras, microphones everywhere for instructions as well. So as we've done this bit of work down here, it's one of the safest tunnels in Europe for its age. Can't do anything about the 4 lanes in one, although it is useful for filming.
Yeah.
We do a lot of filming out here, so we'll actually take you out on location. Anybody know what films we've had done out here?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows Part 1. Filmed, if anybody knows it, it's the motorbike chase depicted as the Dartford Tunnel. but it was actually our tunnel because we were half the price of London. Okay, we're cheaper up here. But also the 4 lanes gave them running lanes, you know, to put their equipment either side and then film the middle 2 lanes. Anything else? Any other films?
Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious 6. They filmed kind of off the disused branch and into the tunnel, and then they resurfaced the road afterwards because they'd smashed up a load of brand new BMWs on it. Any others? There's one recent, well, a couple of recent ones. Yesterday, the film Yesterday,
Oh yes.
where they're dancing in the tunnel, and they did film some footage for Batman in here, but nobody yet has spotted us. So I think there's quite a lot of Liverpool that they filmed that they didn't use in the end, which is a shame, but they did at least come and film in here. And then, as I said, we had Hollyoaks so we had Hollyoaks in the fan chamber this time last week, so we couldn't go in the fan chamber that you came into. Top secret. Never bodes well for anybody in Hollyoaks though if they're filming in the tunnel. It's always very big disaster. It's car smash out here, they're trapped down here, and I don't know what happened to them in their fan chamber, but it wasn't good apparently. Right, we're going to go out and have a little play with the live traffic now. We go out in groups of 7. I think we ended up with 21.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So if we go out in groups of 7, what we're going to do, there's a green handrail out there, and we're going to be stood behind it. Now the lanes out here are only 9 feet wide. For instance, the newer tunnel, Kingsway, they're 12 feet wide. Vehicles were much smaller when this tunnel was built. So please do not lean over, because a big van with wing mirrors can be about 10 feet wide. And I can't afford any more hard hats this year. So if you could just keep your bodily parts back behind the green railing. You can take photos out here, but just don't flash. The driver
Of any kind.
No flashing of any kind. They'll think they think you're tunnel police and you've got a speed gun on them, so it upsets them. So don't do that. If you've lost your bearings, the exits are this way and this way. It's like EasyJet. This way is Liverpool. Just around the bend is the dock exit. Obviously, this way is Birkenhead. Just around the next bend, and you're under the river. Okay. It's going to be quite noisy out here, and there's quite a lot of you. So, what you're looking for when you go out, if you look up, you'll see a flat section of roof with holes in it. It's a black roof with black holes. It's quite difficult to see, but that's where the exhaust fumes are being dragged up now by the fans upstairs. Back above your head, back to the vent station. Vent station's not directly above the tunnel, it's too heavy. It's all built to the side. Fresh air's coming down underneath us. There's a curb the other side which you'll see, and there's just a space basically. Fresh air comes over at curb level. Okay? So you ready to go out and play with the traffic? Okay? Do you want to take your foot? You just have a little look out here and then come back to the next level down.
That way. Don't go down the steps though.
it goes right, it's right round the corner, yeah. Okay, so fresh air comes from round that corner. It's like a banana wall, it's a curved wall, so it's up to that big fan that we had switched on. It's not on at the minute because the other roof is going to get switched on again. So it comes down here, heads off towards Birkenhead. These are the holes underneath the road deck. It is a bit untidy, I'll give you that down here. We're going to start patching it because concrete has a lifespan of about 100 years. This area down here was completed by about 1928, 6 years short of 100 years. So we're having to start some major kind of concrete works now. The tour, a bit of a whistle stop tour. You kind of have seen most of what we'd show people anyway. We don't do a tour of the outside, but lots of lovely architectural features on the outside. We don't have a gift shop. There's a table with some bits on it if anybody wants anything. One of the things that's there is a walking tour of the outside, showing all the different carvings and what they signify. So if you're interested in that, or there's a little book. We'll show you all the things in the history of what you've seen today as well. We've got 3 and a bit more flights of stairs. We have no budget to run these tours, genuinely have no budget. So we do rely on TripAdvisor and we're steadily running at 5 stars at the minute. So if you've enjoyed it, you feel the urge to give us 5 stars, please go on TripAdvisor. If you haven't, it's fine, don't log on. But I hope you have enjoyed your tour with me and Phil tonight.
Yeah, okay.
3.5 flights left.
Right then.